Now let's assume that, hypothetically, you want to beat the island in 100 days. You're going to need a lot of dinosaurs to make that happen, an army for every boss, a few specialized tames to survive in the different regions of the map, and a cute little bugger to call friend. How do you tame these creatures? Are they a knockout tame? Does the level matter? What the heck are you supposed to feed them? And most importantly, what kind of trap would stop them from eating your face? Welcome to Taming for Dummies, where I'm going to teach you the basics of how to tame most of the basic creatures in ARK Survival Ascended, because as it just so happened, that scenario was not hypothetical and I only have 95 days left to beat this map. So let's get cracking. Before going out to actually tame these creatures, I had to prepare. There are a few things we're going to need before any taming can take place, that being narcotics, tranquilizers, a trap, and kibble. Every creature we need to beat this map is a simple knockout tame, meaning all you have to do is pump tranquilizers into it until it gets knocked out. Most of the creatures we are looking for can be captured in the same basic trap, using 4 stone foundations, 8 walls to place as door frames, and 4 ramps. That's it. I mean, my personal favorite trap is the triple metal sign, but that's not super early game friendly. There are a lot of specialized traps out there that work really well, but that requires you to A, remember what you need to build them, and B, also remember how to build them. This 484 trap is not the best trap by any means, but it will do for most of what we are looking to tame today. Finally, leading us to kibble. Kibble is a bit more of a difficult proposition. Basically, every tier of creature desires a certain tier of kibble. You can create higher tiers by using eggs of dinosaurs who correspond to that tier. That's to say, kibble that is made out of T-Rex eggs can be used to effectively tame any creature of the same class as a T-Rex, as well as any below the class of the T-Rex. But you couldn't use it to tame, let's say, a Utaranus and expect the same level of efficiency because the UT is of a higher class. Don't worry, you don't actually need to remember any of that. Personally, I just go to Dodo decks to check what kind of kibble the creatures I need want to consume. Unfortunately for me, the highest tier of kibble I could produce was the lowest one using Dodo eggs, so that would not be that useful for the variety of creatures I was aiming to capture for my army. But you can still achieve a high level of taming efficiency by using basically any crops for herbivores and prime meat for carnivores. It's just gonna take longer than if you used kibble, and since you also need crops to produce kibble in the first place, it's a win-win. So for now, I was building out a base on Herbivore Island to produce the crops and narcoberries we needed. You might remember that we harvested some crystal in a nearby cave on the last episode. We needed that to build a greenhouse structure to assist in growing our produce, because without it, well, let's just say 100 days will be cutting it close. And of course, finding a toilet in a drop was an absolute godsend to further help our crops to grow by turning poop into fertilizer. Though I did take a break occasionally to go out and collect supply drops on NASCAR whilst waiting for my crops to grow, and boy howdy was that ever a good decision. Not only did NASCAR just get a 6 saddle upgrade, but I also found some metal structures I could tear down for additional resources. Resources which would allow me to further upgrade both our houseboat as well as our base. Oh, hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hopefully this one doesn't get destroyed. Since all of my friends were doing that thing where they have to have real jobs instead of playing dinosaur game with me all day, it fell on me to take care of any farming, upgrading, and advancing that had to take place. It took until day 7 until everything was in place and ready for me to go out and do some actual taming. So what are we looking for? A few things actually. As for our boss armies, there are 3 specific creatures I wanted to tame. A Megatherium to fight the Brood Mothers, since those get an insane damage buff when fighting bugs. A T-Rex to take to the Megapithecus, because the big monkey does not have any specific mechanics we have to worry about. And a Therizino to fight the dragon, since that scaly bastard deals bonus damage to carnivores, and Theris are pretty much the toughest herbivores you can stuff into a boss arena. Oh yeah, obviously we're going to need a breeding pair of each of these, so we can raise them into their respective armies. The problem is finding them. For our purposes, that being the gamma difficulty of these boss fights, anything above level 100 could potentially be good enough. If I wanted to push higher difficulties, I'd definitely insist to tame creatures as close to the max level of 150 as possible. But since we only had 100 days and a self-imposed challenge to not use any flyers until we defeated the first boss, again, anything above 100 would have to do. I went back to our original spawn location, remembering that we got harassed by a bunch of Therizinos on our second day. Unfortunately, the island is absolutely notorious for spawning low-level creatures, so to free up the spawn for a new one, I had to take out the ones that did not meet my criteria. Which, by the way, a Parasaur is not a great combat tame. I needed a solution. I could not venture very far because there was an alpha T-Rex on the loose, and I could not promote them respawning here where I knew they spawned because my Parasaur was not exactly built for cooling the population of roided up tickle chickens. My solution? Tame up that level 55 tickle chicken and use it to slaughter its brethren. That is, if I can get it into the trap. Alright, come on buddy, get over here. Okay, who put this tree here? Get rid of this tree! God damn it. Come on bud. Come on. Seriously? You just... You're just not gonna let me go? Okay, dude. Thankfully, it did eventually fall into the trap and I could begin laying into it. Now, what you want to do when using a crossbow, especially for creatures that are not super tanky, is spacing out your shots. Basically, a bunch of torpidity is applied to the creature at the time of incision, but more residual torpidity is added over time for a couple of seconds. If you spam your arrows too fast, you are cancelling that residual benefit, meaning it takes more shots to knock it out and the chance of you killing it by accident increases. Something you don't have to worry about when using tranquilizer darts in a long neck rifle because all of its torpidity is imparted upon impact. Eventually, the creature is going to do something called torpor running. Basically, it stops trying to fight you and instead makes an attempt to run away, which is a sign showing that they are about to go unconscious. Once it is out, stuff that preferred food into the inventory and make sure to not let it get hit by anything during the taming process. There is something called taming efficiency, which is dictated by the kind of food you feed them, but also by how much they get hit whilst unconscious. If anything hits them at all, your efficiency goes down and you might as well let it wake up to restart the process, because the lower the efficiency, the fewer levels it gets on top of its original level after taming. Now, in my attempt to keep my trapped Therizino safe, I was trying to take out anything that could pose a threat around it. Unfortunately, in the process, I accidentally pissed off a Dimorphodon and now its entire family was seeking retribution. Dimorphodons have the unique ability to hit the rider of a tame rather than the tame itself, leading to my eventual demise. And when I returned to pick up the stuff from my body, all of my taming supplies had disappeared. The annoying thing about Therizinos is that they wake up very, very quickly, and since I had lost all of my narcotics, I had to use my parasaur to farm narco berries to keep it down the old school way, which went really well until I got an uninvited visitor. Oh god. No way, bro. I was so close to taming it. I needed to get away. Hey, you. Do I have enough tranks? It's gamble time. Something's getting tamed today. I don't care what it is. I didn't have a lot of trank arrows left, but I did have a high quality crossbow. The effectiveness of my tranks was enhanced by my weapon, meaning knocking out the T-Rex was not actually completely out of question. I was fortunate enough to have it distracted by the wildlife surrounding it. Whilst I was munching on Phiomias and Iguanodons, I continued peppering it with any and all tranquilizers at my disposal, which I definitely did not appreciate. But eventually, it went down. That's pretty cool, right? I mean, I just knocked out my first T-Rex, but actually, there was something much more exciting right next to me. What is... That's an otter?! Oh my god, I was flabbergasted. Screw the T-Rex, this is what I actually wanted. Otters are not only absolutely adorable, but they can also be carried as shoulder pets, granting you additional insulation from the elements, and they are the only creature in the game that can carry multiple artifacts in its inventory. Taming an otter is not as simple as knocking it out and stuffing food into its mouth. It is what is called a passive tame. Usually you can get your hands on passive tames by putting their preferred food on the last slot of your hotbar and hitting interact, like I did with the moss chops on our previous episode. But otters are a little special in that they want you to carry an entire fish to them, so I had to find, eliminate, and drag a fish all the way over to it for it to consider being my friend. But before starting that project, I took my now tamed Therizino out for a spin to kill some babies to get my hands on prime meat to feed the T-Rex. I ended up calling my Theri Smitty, my T-Rex Verben, and my Otter Jaeger. Now that I was done taming for the day, I wanted to do one last check to try and find my lost taming supplies, and that was a really bad idea. Oh, here it is. Oh, what? My taming stuff! Ow! What the? Wait, no! Oh, no! Oh, no! Run away! Run away, please! Oh, God, no, not like this! Not like this! Bro, they're gonna eat my otter! And that they did. Who thought that taking just a few steps without my bodyguards would end up in such a catastrophe? Of course, I went back to not only reclaim my gear, but also avenge Jaeger, just that without him, the squad definitely did not feel complete. I decided to call it for tonight and bring my new Tames back to New Man's Landing on Herbivore Island, where I would process this tragic loss. But that was not meant to be the only one. The next day, still looking for new Tames, I was halted by an Alpha Raptor and a Spinosaurus. Under normal circumstances, Smitty would be able to keep the raptor at class length while delivering damage, but when I once again pissed off a family of Dimorphodons by accident, I had to decide who gets to live, and yeah, I chose myself. I also lost my Ascendant crossbow when venturing too far inland at a place that was unrecoverable without a strong combat tame, which I didn't have because I needed to hit level 74 to be able to craft a T-Rex saddle to even be able to ride Verben. In short, I was straight up not having a good time. It was now day 10 and I basically had nothing to show for myself besides a T-Rex I could not ride, a couple of parasaurs, and a family of trikes. Oh yeah, I also tamed a Pegomax by accident, but don't get too attached because I'm pretty sure he starved at some point without me noticing. Point being, something needed to change. When the boys come back and they see that my greatest taming achievement was knocking out a couple of new beavers that didn't even fall for my trap, I will be ridiculed. So here's the idea. The Taminator. Why should I carry my trap around in my inventory when my raft can be the trap? It uses all the same principles of my original 484 trap, just that it was, well, mobile. Once I caught something, I would be able to move it someplace safe and not have to worry about getting attacked by Troodons or Alpharaptors. Sometimes my genius scares even myself. My mount of choice would be the humble Iguanodon, because they are super easy to knock out, breed up very quickly, and do not run out of stamina within quadrupedal mode. And with that, Endeavor and I headed out in search of a worthy combat tame. After testing the trap on a Titanoboa and confirming that it does in fact work, Endeavor and I immediately got stuck on a level 140 Sarco? I'm sorry Endeavor, but you're gonna have to take one for the team. Now my intention was to drag this crocodile all the way to my raft, but when it got stuck on a random piece of terrain, I definitely started to feel a bit silly about all the effort I put into creating the Taminator. And even sillier when another level 125 Sarco got stuck on a gosh dang snail. Listen man, I spent the last in-game week suffering, so I'm not gonna complain about a couple of free Sarcos, as well as a very mediocre frog. It is kind of crazy how prone creatures are to just getting stuck on terrain out in the swamps. But at last, Brandon was not gonna be the only one having fun on a Sarco, because rivaling NASCAR was Prius. I could finally go about doing what I was trying to achieve from day 7. It's day 14 now, by the way. On the back of Prius, I could swiftly traverse the waters, take care of low-level dinos, fight most alpha creatures in my wake, and at last get my first high-level Therizino to spawn. This level 135 beauty might not have the best stats, in fact they're pretty bad, but at least I had a breeding pair to replace Smitty. Don't worry, we'll talk about breeding and mutations in detail on a future episode, but just know that this baby Therizino named Jinxed opened up a brand new chapter on our way to day 100. But hey, if you're struggling to even survive your first 5 days, let alone 14, what about you check out my previous episode titled Welcome to the Island. That one covers a bunch of new player-friendly tips on what to tame, where to get resources, and how to survive. You can find the card on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching, and until next time, peace.